Okay, a few people have been asking for updates. I wanted to go over the build and what we've been doing. So first off, for hardcore rankings, we've been able to hit everything. So the build's been working great. We hit the end of Spire. Seems like you just kind of spin there at the end and then it says it's over. And then for the Void Rift, we are right at the end there, 94%. We're almost at the end, so as soon as I build up a little bit more tankiness, kind of, I don't really need DPS anymore, I don't think. But as soon as I have more tankiness, I'll be able to finish that. And yeah, Spire, Barrier, and Void. Those are the two big ones I was trying to go for. Now, let's go over a few of the build things. Here's what the skill tree looks like right here, right now. Only things I can kind of give is that with the Lightning Rune Knight, depending on what build you're doing for hardcore, I still use a elemental and a physical. And the reason being is when I get into a reflect map, if one of them dies right off the bat to the reflect, it helps a lot with having another one ready, so I don't have to leave the map or die. So in softcore, I would replace the Lightning Rune Knight with like a shout or really anything. Even in this build, it'd work out pretty good in hardcore without having it, but just if you're not going to identify your maps and kind of save up on resources, then this helps out a lot. Anyway, here's what the build looks like. I'll go over a few of the runes here. Concentrated area damage, presence, HP, minion damage, mana storm, and melee damage app. These are for my Wrathful Rune Knight. Most of this is for pushing the hardest content because he needs to be really tanky. Until you get to hard content, or if you're just kind of general farming, general mapping, you can kind of do all sorts of things. You don't have to do this. Also for mapping, this is kind of a mapping setup right now. We got the Whirlwind. When I don't map, I don't usually use the Whirlwind setup when I'm using bosses. On bosses, I usually manually cast Gather Minions, and I actually channel. I don't know if channel works too well with these guys. I'm not sure if it's really working with the Rune Knights half the time. Still use it. Now, dodge doesn't work too well with our build, but I'm still using roll right now just because I like the way it interacts with my whirlwind. I might switch over to leap or even back over to teleport, but I've already awoken a lot of those in my count, so sometimes choices I make aren't entirely based off the best. It's just based off of what I don't have awoken in my account yet. In this case, this is one of the best setups I came up with. So we got Mark of Focus Origin, cooldown reduction, Unite Crowd and Rage. We just went for the skill rune effect. And Hazy Melody. Depending on what build you're doing, Max Abyssling Summon counts pretty good with the Minions cooldown. This helps you summon these guys out a little bit quicker. Thing is if you don't need that plus Abyssling, the effect for this is going to give you a lot more amp. So you can get more Rune Knight damage amplification from that. As you see, we're up to 73% Rune Knight damage amp. Over here we got 74% attack speed, crit rate. So we're really scaling our enhanced skills as high as we can get. From the guild, you can get enhance effect. So you won't be synthing that. This is where guilds come in handy. Same with dampened resource cost. And a few other things we haven't synthed yet. Final build's going to have a totem in it, but we do need to get the enhanced skill cast our totem for us. Next thing we got is our Gather Minions Verity, attached to decreased duration. This setup works really well if you're using the spell activation on hit skill. I just barely got this, so now we can map a little bit quicker. So this move is going to allow you to cool down the cooldown reduction on any of your skills to have a high cooldown. So anything that's like 30 seconds or above with this setup here, you're going to get it down to about 5 seconds to be able to summon stuff out. That'll probably help out a lot with your mapping, with all sorts of things that you'll be doing. Alright, other thing that people usually ask, you can kind of see what runes we're using here, so you can take a screenshot of that or kind of go over whatever you want here. In terms of what you want to awaken first, I think that main skill is always really important. It's really fun to get that enlargement effect. See him get really large and then start blowing stuff up with the area effect he gets. The other awakening that he has might be a little bit stronger, but this is the one I prefer. It's his final one that gives him the elemental. We'll take a look at that here in just a second. So Javelin Abyssling and Melee Abyssling. The Melee Abyssling seems to be just a little bit stronger than the Javelin in terms of how much damage output it can do, and in terms of when it does its AoE moves and whatnot. So I like to use the Melee Abyssling over the Javelin. At times you'll see, especially during gameplay there, that we'll bring both of them out, and that's when we want to do a tremendous amount of damage. Final setup for Whirlwind, I'll link there. We've already done that a few times. We don't have the final setup for anything yet because Trom's crystals are a little bit low. Next awakening I would recommend is doing your Unite, Crowd, and Rage. That's if you want to do a little bit more damage and just be all around better. And for me, the third awakening was Hazy Melody, but the first awakening for most people is probably going to be Hazy Melody. So when it comes to first awakenings, don't really do your link runes. You're going to try to put your effort into awakening your main skill and your Hazy Melody first. Hazy Melody with the +1 Abyssling is going to make the playstyle a lot more enjoyable. Now, when it comes to pushing content, I would do Hazy Melody, Wrathful Rune Knight, Unite, Crowd, and Rage, and then Mark of Focus first. These are going to bring you the absolute most amount of damage. And then you can do Gather Minions Verity to get that tankiness for your minions. The Armor Amp and the Elemental Resist Amp. Other than that, the way we're going to awaken the rest of the stuff is just based off the content we're doing. So probably going to be Awaken Whirlwind for the damage reduction, and we'll move on from there and see exactly what we want to do. I need to eventually get the Abyssling a little bit stronger and whatnot so he doesn't die when he goes flying out. And I need to replace a few of these things and actually finish out the build. Final build here, just so people, if anybody is interested, is I'm going to manually cast Gather Minions. And we are going to use our electromagnetic field. So last season, we were using Illusion Hook. I still recommend this if you haven't awoken this yet, but since I've awoken it, I wanted to get a different one. And this damage amp, it always affects. It's really amazing and does a lot of damage. So if you're channeling especially with Abysslings, this is really powerful. So let's go over exactly what we're going to do with Awakening here. Eventually, we're going to get our electromagnetic field finished. This will be the final build, if anybody's interested. So let's move a few things around just to make it work out. All right. So in the final setup here, let's do this actually. Because I'm in hardcore, I find it a little bit ridiculous sometimes when I'm flying in, even with Savagery on, to activate my minions, gather minions with Whirlwind. And I found it a few times where I've had to roll out and then activate gather minions at this stage instead of being able to go in and hit them. So the playstyle I want to use for softcore, almost all the time you're going to be just gather minions on your Whirlwind. It's really feels really nice when you're using that. But the playstyle I'd wanted to try out, and I kind of liked, was using the electromagnetic field here. So this is going to be the finished playstyle. We hit that off. It'll pull enemies in, constantly applying an amp effect. And the cooldown on it is reduced heavily because of that trigger rune. So that'll be the play. Every time we run into a group of creatures, I'll be able to bind them and make them constantly just get sucked back in over and over again with that electromagnetic field. Now, the reason why I do that is because this way, if I'm running up to a group of creatures and I take like a tremendous amount of damage before I get in a whirlwind range, I can just gather minions. They can run in, I can kind of back off. Don't have to worry about actually initiating combat. Or if we've already initiated combat and I have that vortex in, we can just gather minions right on top of the vortex and then teleport out. Seemed like a pretty cool playstyle. So when we finish that, the reason why we even do this... And here, these guys are a little noisy. Let's turn off our little noisy buddy there. So electromagnetic field in the end is going to allow us to have the area of effect. Dampening, it's not going to be as great, but the 25% chance to inflict pain. Because it pulses multiple times, it's going to go off most often, and you're going to get that damage taken increase. So, I haven't tested to see if this stacks with the other versions of pain, since this is a 10% compared to the 15 from the other. But I just like the idea of using the electromagnetic field, especially since we're going to move out of our electric rune knight eventually here. Okay, well hopefully that helps you guys with the build I'm going to use there. But let's go over a few things that people might want to use with their rune knights and whatnot. Let's go over a few people have requested for charms and then also the relic setup. So here's the relics. I went with Acubin, Leo, and Castor. So the reason on this, Acubin is going to give you the minion crit. If you're a crit build, this helps. It's not tremendous, but it helps. And then we were also using the lightning rune knight at the beginning, so I really like the idea of having this Curse of Storm. Now that we're switching over to electromagnetic field, this will still help. So I'm going to kind of stick with the same idea. Leo here, especially for hardcore, this is going to give your rune knight more HP. He's going to need it because he's going to be transferring damage. You're going to be transferring damage from yourself over to him. If you pick this as your first rune in hardcore, you're going to get access to more potions while you're leveling. And you're also going to have access to regeneration pretty quick. So that could help you in hardcore. And a lot of this is a hardcore build since this is a hardcore character. But a lot of this will work in your standard as well. Castor's our final one we picked. This was more for the minion HP was the idea at the beginning. And I like the idea of cursing things with the attack speed dampening since we weren't using it anymore. We're going to switch out of this maybe. I do like this skill, but I might switch back to a different curse just because I can get it a lot sooner. Since you can go past 3 relics, you don't have to do this. This is the 3 that affect minions the most. And these are the 3 that are going to be the most effective, and you can always look at and be like, oh, I got 3 passives going. You don't have to really worry about them. If you want to do maximum damage and whatnot, Boreal is going to give you that extra HP. And you're also going to get access to this Curse of Power skill. It's really powerful. The damage amplification for cursed enemies and the chance to bleed. Very powerful for your Wrathful Rune Knight. All other Rune Knights can pretty much use the Vesper. Vesper is going to be great for your mana. There's a few other options like your Intelligence. Intelligence always is going to increase your crit damage if you're transferring stats. It's crit damage for your minions. And then you can also rely on your Curse of Withering. So it's 4.2% right here. Do they show an eye here so we can see the maximum? I don't see how to show the maximum, but it does go up. So you can increase the chance to do double maximize damage. And this is going to help double maximize damage builds for sure. So hopefully that helps you guys with relics. And then a few people have requested charms. Here's the charms I went with. So we went with a Hamal and a Sefdar. Hamal went up to 132. Sefdar's 160 right now. This means we can even switch out an extra relic. Have more options. And this is the kind of charms we're kind of going for. So for hardcore, I wanted some critical damage taken dampening. And critical damage for minions is great. We got the Sentry critical damage legendary. Boo-hoo. That kind of sucked when that happened. But other than that, this works out. This isn't the best kind of charm I'd go for. I legendaried it mainly because I needed a Hamal to be at 32% so that I could finish what I was doing here. We got the HP, meaning critical damage. This is one of my favorite kind of charms. HP always helps, and critical damage is just great. Over here we got minions deal double maximized damage, critical rate, and attack speed. It was just a good overall charm. Same with this one. Critical damage, just found a charm with critical damage that we needed it. And that goes the same with here. Found an HP charm with critical damage, decided why not. And then now we have the final charm, Boreal. I needed armor. And the critical rate, HP, and chaos resist kind of finished out what I needed with the build for with my chaos resist in particular. The 17 stats on the legendary, it kind of helped out. Reasons why we have charms that are set up, very particular. Things like Boreals here, I'll go over in the charm bench here in just a moment. And it also goes with the Lacrima, so I'll just walk you guys over there real quick. So with the charm bench, we don't have our charm set up just yet. I just got the Chaos Tier 8. And it gives us 100%. That's from doing the Blessing Effect over here. I highly recommend Blessing Effect first, because these are expensive to level up. And right now it takes a Tier 9 Chaos Star. So just a heads up, you eat charms into this slot until finally it wants a Chaos Star. You eat the low-level Chaos Star. It wants charms again. Then it will want a Tier 8 Chaos Star. You eat the Tier 8 Chaos Star, and then it just wants normal charms again all the way up to the last one. So eating that Tier 8 Chaos Star gets you access to a lot of power. Also, things like this, the T7 and below, you can get up to 71% right here, already at T9. As you see, these are all T7 and below, so you get a pretty big bonus. And that's the reason why we decided to legendary this at level 8 instead of level 9. I also need to eat a couple level 8 legendary charms, so I'm hoping to get something better in this slot eventually. And then we can eat this charm. Just to give people options and ideas on how to do your charms and like what the idea is to do good charms. Over here, we had the critical, everything was critical on here, so I went with the critical legendary. It's also the reason why we made this charm legendary. I needed to have a reason to use this and level it up, and this helped with that. All options is being used right here. The problem with that is we legendaried this, so it doesn't work anymore. So I'm trying to figure out what legendary I want to put here now. Over here. And you can see it shows off to the left where they're at, if you're ever wondering. We have the blessing effect and the prefix options, but we're reducing the potion effect here. Potion effect is good, but I found it beneficial just to reduce the effects so I can increase the other effects on here. It didn't bother me at all. This one was being used by a minion slot earlier. We have to add something here soon. What it's using right now is minion all options, which isn't really helping much. I want to affect everything. So I'll probably move this option over to there. As you see, I am out of star fusers. So hopefully that helps you guys kind of with what you're going to do with your charms and how to figure out what to do. Not having a lower level charm is not a problem. All these things are really good. For a long time, I was relying on the blessing effect with the magic charm. You can do some crazy nutty things with this. As you see, when it gets to level 10, you get this extra effect. So it's all option up to 210%. And then once you finish this, you get this extra bonus blessing effect plus 50%. So this means that you can put a magical charm somewhere, which I was looking for a critical damage one here soon. And then you can get extra blessing effect, which makes it actually useful. And then you can get the effect. So I've seen these go up to like 100, maybe 200% in different categories. So really look out for trying to use a magic charm if you can, because the percentages are really high. Hopefully that helps with charms. Just had a few people ask me about that. I just wanted to go over them. And yes, I like to use the Hamal and I like to use the Sefdar. It depends on your build. If you're using the barrier, you're going to use Alyssa, of course. In this case, your Lacrima really determines what you're going to do. So as you see, I have a one-handed and a helmet. If you can, try to get a two-handed Lacrima. It's slightly stronger, especially for minion builds, since the staff is going to allow you to get crit rate. But we don't have one, so this is what we're going with. We've got the single weapon. Not really the best stats, and I wouldn't really recraft like this, but I don't want to pay the rupees or the rubies to get this out of here. So we're just kind of stuck with this till we make something better. And then in the helmet range, we have HP. I'll just show you guys pretty much what the helmet is that we're using. So this is the helmet I have. And that's going to help with a lot of our different effects. So that's going to help with pretty much every enhance effect that you have. We'll go over a lot of my gear right here real quick. I'll show you guys that. Sometimes when you do a recraft, you're hoping it's something else. Minion damage isn't the best, but that's what we got. The recraft on this helmet really wasn't what we wanted. We were hoping for enhanced skill rune effect, but I don't have enough mats to go too much further, so this is what we got here. In a way, all of these actually go into the Lacrima, as you can see, by clicking right here. So if I was to put these into the Lacrima, it'd probably be a better helmet to go in there. So eventually I might transfer this into the Lacrima and then use a different helmet on myself. Since we're in hardcore, I figured that this would be a good shoulders. Rune Knight takes damage for me. I crafted this, but the high craft decided to go with some barrier, which doesn't help us too much, but it does help a bit. Been using this pretty much the entire season. The minion armor, it's helped, but I think I can start transitioning into something a little bit more tanky for myself here. And the high craft gave me mana recovery on blocking, which I actually really needed that attack block expertise since we're not using the shield. Same for this. Gloves are Mirazetti, but I put a wind on here instead, and that's only because we wanted to get the minion critical damage on movement skill use. The high craft didn't get what I was looking for, and the normal craft, it was okay, but I would have rather just kept the critical damage. So if we get enough materials, we're going to reroll on this. Once again, I use Mirazetti to get the damage amp. There's a few different ways to get this. This isn't the only way to craft gloves like this anymore. And I used the Leo to get the critical damage after turning it into a legendary. Boots we're still working on. We have the enhanced rune effect. As soon as I finish the right pair of boots here, we have the level 149, but I was kind of wanting to get a perfect rolled one here to 100, so we'll wait and see what happens. Necklace, I like to go with water. There's a few other options now, but water is the easiest one just to kind of get that big crit damage. If you can get minion HP or damage pen on there, you can re-roll these into effective stats, especially the HP. Critical rate, we don't need anymore, but I don't have the mats to re-roll, so that's why that's that way, if anybody wonders. Belt, went with HP amp belt. I'm still working on this. That's why it's not legendary. Anything not legendary, we're working on, which is these 3 items. Here's how your rings kind of want to be. You want to have it set up for a crit rate. I put this one on in particular so people can see how to reroll. So, attack speed, damage amp, and minion hit rate. And we re-rolled our minions regenerate HP into crit damage. So if you can, try to get a ring with crit rate, crit damage, and minions regenerate HP, and you can re-roll that regen into crit damage. And then over here in the top, if you could get attack speed, damage amplification, and either hit rate or HP, you could re-roll that or get a high craft into even more crit damage. That'd be the most damage you could get. Something like this. A few other rings that I like. I like to use the Acuben rings. That gives you sharpness effect, and you get damage amp. It's just the requirements to wield a ring like that's a little bit more difficult. All right, hopefully that goes over everything for you guys. That's pretty much all the gear. Went over the charms, went over the relics. If you want to know what kind of build we're using with the Zodiac trees, is where I'm doing double Rune Knight. The single Rune Knight is amazing, and I recommend checking out one of the videos we have for that. They all are effective. So right now we're using the authority effect. Reason being is I want the elemental resist for the hard content we're using, or we're trying to go through. For hardcore, I can't spec out of the HP ally transmission. It's just too good. Builds that really work very well, though, is if you're doing single target, Mark of Focus is amazing. And if you want to, you can use Rune Knight's Cognition, especially with a single Rune Knight, because this is going to cool down his abilities over and over again. It's just amazing. Abyssling Absorb Enhance is a little bit more difficult to use, but you can do this if you want to feed your minion over and over again into your Rune Knight, allowing him to constantly get this buff up every 5 seconds. For double Rune Knight, I highly recommend using the Wrathful first. Wrathful can bring 2 out at once. You can use the melee and you can use the javelin. The only way to do that is to either spec for it or to wait out the cooldown. One build I recommend a lot of people try is doing the single Rune Knight. Maybe even sticking with stat transfer, but going over to the energy. This way that single Rune Knight can just gather a shit ton of energy. it's pretty good. So I recommend trying that build out if you can. And we've gone over the explosion build a few times, so I'll skip that. All right. So hopefully that helps you guys. The only other thing that kind of is weird with the build is if you're going with energy, you are going to spec into more energy here. And you can gather points for that out of any of the trees, really. For me, I'd probably just take a lot of points out of the dampening that you don't need. Only reason why I have points into this is I wanted to activate this armor. So sometimes I don't go over all the Zodiac tree because I have some Zodiac stones that really don't make sense with what I'm doing, and it might not help your build too much. But things I can help you with is like what the main specialization is going to be, and things like how do you get 2 Rune Knights out of the same? Well, it's Wrathful Rune Knight, Time of the Hunt's the best way to do that. And if you're Whirlwind build, I would even find the points to get into alert movement. This feels really, really great when you're doing Whirlwind. Okay. I hope that helps you guys a lot. I've been able to do all the content. We're probably about to finish the Void Rift here very shortly. And we have been deathless on hardcore so far. So a very good build for hardcore. The life leech is great. And the life leech is kind of like the main thing that makes this as strong as it is. So the damage, everything's pretty good. I hope we went over all of the things. I've had a few people say that haven't gone over everything in the videos, but I think that's everything for how the build's going to work. If you have any comments or anything, just put them in the comments and I'll try to add that for you guys. I'll try to add more content too. All right. Have a good day.